Very good. Well, I know you're going to be very busy for the U.S. Attorney's Office on public corruption, perhaps just taking the city of Detroit for, I don't know, maybe a couple, 3 years, who knows. But I do know that this is the most I've seen as far as public corruption ever since the Chief Bill Hart investigation indictments back in the 80s. If people recall that, that was when the police chief of the city of Detroit actually went to prison for, I think, embezzling over $1 million out of what they call the Secret Service Fund. I don't know. I'm not sure you're familiar with that.
I remember it. I was in the office at the time. I remember when that case occurred, and I agree with you, Bill, that probably these kinds of cases, the cases that we've been doing, there have been about 8 or 9 individuals that have pleaded guilty so far in our case. Probably is the most important set of investigations we've had since the time of the Chief Hart case.
Very good. Well, let's move on from public corruption to your office and how you address the problem of violent crime in not necessarily only in the city of Detroit, but the Tri-County area, eastern Michigan.
Absolutely. We have a program that we call Project Safe Neighborhoods, and that is a program that involves our cooperation with local prosecutors, and particularly in Southwest Detroit. We've been working very closely with Kim Worthy's folks, and our prosecutors actually meet with their prosecutors, and they go over all of the PCRs, which I'm sure you know, those are basically the complaints that the police bring in every day of all the individuals who are arrested with firearms. And they look at those very carefully. They look at the strength of the evidence. They look at the seriousness of the offense. They look at the criminal history of the person who has got the weapon. And then they basically pick those cases that they think will have the most significant impact on the community by removing this person and giving them a serious sentence in federal court. And that's what we try to do in terms of our Project Safe Neighborhoods. But it also involves outreach in the community. We have something called Project Sentry, which is a half-day to a day-long program that goes out into the schools where we'll have a prosecutor. Sometimes we'll have a medical professional, such as a doctor or a nurse. We'll have a person who is an expert in essentially what we call victim advocacy. Sometimes these are folks who either have been victims of a crime or maybe themselves are, let's say, reformed folks who have gotten out of prison, but they know about the dangers of firearms violence and of drug trafficking. And then we do a program for the children where we talk about nonviolence and we talk about the dangers of guns and drugs, and it's been very effective.
Very good. Moving on to a huge problem today, and that's foreclosure on homes and mortgage frauds and different things. And I think mortgage frauds today has been a huge problem throughout this country. What is your office doing on that area as far as mortgage frauds, Terry?
We're doing a lot on it, Bill, because this area.
And how does it work, if I can ask you?
Yeah. One of the things we've done is to create a mortgage fraud task force that involves state, local, and federal law enforcement. We've also brought in the state regulators, who are the folks that do the licensing function with respect to people involved in the real estate business. And we've been sharing information, trying to pick out the most important cases. We've also been trying to see if we can do more cases because these cases are very complicated. They tend to be very paper intensive, document intensive, where you have to look at all of the different papers that were in the mortgage file, and it can be very complex. And so sometimes these cases, frankly, just take too long. So we've been trying to do what we can to speed them through the process. And as a result, we've had some success. We've had a number of significant mortgage fraud prosecutions. And so the other thing that
can we expect more indictments coming down on mortgage frauds?
There's no question. Although we can't really comment on specific cases, I can tell you that we have initiatives that are going on right now that are going to result in additional cases. And one of the great things that I think I'm glad to say, for our district, is that we've recently applied to get more horses, if you will, more prosecutors in our office, and I'm pretty confident that we're going to get some additional resources where we'll have more lawyers working on this, and that always has an impact if you can have more people applied to the problem. And so I'm hopeful about that. But The problem, especially because of what was going on with the housing bubble before the crash, essentially,
Right.
Was just completely out of control. And so we've got cases, stacking up in terms of the fraud. And so we will be seeing more and more cases in that area.
Okay, very good. Well, Terry, we've got just less than a minute to go, and I'd like to ask you what you like, really, in closing, what you like most about your work.
Okay, well, I'll tell you, Bill, there's no question to me what I like the most about the work. And that is that, a lawyer always has a client. The lawyer always has to try to listen to the client and try to accomplish what the client wants. One of the great things about working in the U.S. Attorney's Office, both as the U.S. Attorney and as an Assistant United States Attorney, is that we really are in a position to just do the right thing under the circumstances. And that is such a privilege to be able to have a job that lets you do that. And there's no question that, to me, that's what I love the most about the job.
That's very rewarding.
Thanks.
Well, Terry, thank you for being on Police Journal, and thank you for viewing Police Journal. And until next time, stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you.